When you live long enough, you learn something about people. Most of them don't notice the quiet ones. They notice the loud neighbor, the angry neighbor, the one who argues about fences and parking spaces. But the quiet guy, the one who waves politely, who fixes his mailbox every spring, who walks his dog at the same time every evening. People assume he's harmless, invisible. That was me. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 62 years old. And 3 years ago, my own family proved just how invisible they thought I was. I built my house with my own hands in 1987. Back then it was nothing but open land outside town. Just fields, dirt roads, and an old oak tree where my porch is now. I poured the foundation myself, framed every wall, installed every window. My wife, Linda, used to sit on the porch steps while I worked. She'd bring lemonade and say, "Danny, one day this place will be full of grandkids." Back then, I believed her. For 32 years we lived there. We raised 2 sons. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, summer barbecues. The kind of life people say they want. But life has a way of changing slowly, until one day you realize you're standing alone in a place that used to feel full. Linda passed away 8 years ago. Cancer. Fast and cruel. After that, the house got quiet. Too quiet. My sons, Mark and Jason, visited less and less. At first it was work. Then it was distance. Then it was excuses. Eventually, it was silence. 3 years ago, new neighbors moved in next door. A young couple. Early 30s. New SUV. New furniture. New everything. Their names were Tyler and Brooke. The first time we met, they seemed nice enough. Tyler shook my hand and said, "Good to meet you, sir." Brooke smiled politely. But there was something about the way they looked at my house. Not admiration. Calculation. I didn't think much of it. At first. About a month after they moved in, the problems started. Loud music. Late-night parties. Cars parked halfway across my driveway. One Saturday morning I walked outside and found beer bottles scattered across my lawn. I knocked on their door. Tyler answered. He looked annoyed. "Hey," I said calmly. "I think some of your guests left trash in my yard." He shrugged. "Probably kids walking by." Kids. At 2 a.m. I knew better. But I let it go. Things escalated slowly. First it was the noise. Then the parties started getting bigger. Then strangers started cutting across my yard like it was a public park. One night someone even drove across my lawn and left tire marks. That's when I installed security cameras. Not fancy ones. Just simple ones mounted under the porch and by the garage. Old habit. Before retirement, I worked 35 years in construction management. You learn to document everything. Every delivery. Every incident. Every problem. Because sooner or later, someone denies responsibility. A week later I caught Tyler on camera walking into my backyard. At first I thought he was retrieving a ball or something. But then I saw what he did. He moved the property marker stake 2 feet toward my house. I watched the footage 3 times. Then I went outside and checked. Sure enough, the marker was in the wrong spot. That's when I realized what was happening. They weren't just careless neighbors. They were trying to claim part of my land. 2 days later Tyler knocked on my door. He held a piece of paper. A survey. According to him, my fence was 2 feet over the property line. He smiled like a man offering a friendly warning. "You might want to move it before we have to file something official." I looked at the paper. Then I looked at him. And I said the same thing I used to tell contractors when they tried to bluff me. "Show me the original records." He didn't have them. Of course he didn't. For the next few months, they kept pushing. Louder parties. More cars. More trash. More complaints about my fence. One night Tyler even shouted across the yard, "You should sell that old place anyway. Nobody wants houses this old." I just waved and went inside. Because by that point, I already knew exactly what they were planning. And more importantly, I knew how to stop them. You see, most people think quiet means weak. But quiet people usually just watch longer, listen longer, wait longer. And while Tyler and Brooke were busy partying, I was documenting everything. Every noise complaint, every trespass, every time their guests parked illegally, every time Tyler stepped onto my property. My cameras recorded everything, month after month. Then one night, they made a mistake. A big one. Around 1:30 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Backyard camera. I opened the feed. And there was Tyler, holding a shovel. At first I thought he was burying something. But then I realized what he was doing. He was digging up the property marker again. Except this time, he moved it nearly 6 feet. 6. He was trying to redraw the boundary completely. I sat there watching the footage in silence. Because right then, I knew something he didn't. Something he couldn't possibly imagine. The next morning, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My friend Carl. Carl retired from the county land records office. 32 years. If anyone knew property history, it was Carl. When I told him what was happening, he laughed. "Danny, you still have the original survey, don't you?" "Of course." Then they picked the wrong guy. 2 days later Carl came by with a folder. Inside were documents older than my house. Original land plats, boundary records, surveyor notes from 1964. And one very interesting detail. The property marker Tyler kept moving? It wasn't the real boundary. It was just a temporary stake from a landscaping project in the 90s. The actual legal boundary was 3 feet inside Tyler's driveway, meaning part of his driveway was technically built on my land. Carl leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Danny, they've been accusing the wrong neighbor." I didn't smile. Not yet. Because I wanted to be very sure before I made my move. For the next 2 weeks I stayed quiet. I let Tyler keep complaining. Let him keep partying. Let him keep telling people my fence was illegal. Meanwhile, Carl helped me file an official county survey request. Professional. Legal. Documented. 3 weeks later, the survey team arrived. Bright orange flags. Measuring equipment. Tripods. Tyler came outside halfway through the process. "What's going on?" he asked. The surveyor pointed calmly. "Property verification." Tyler's face changed. 2 hours later the lead surveyor walked up to both of us. He held a clipboard. "Well," he said, "Mr. Carter's fence is exactly where it should be." Then he turned slightly toward Tyler. "But part of your driveway appears to cross into his property." You could have heard a pin drop. Tyler tried to argue. Tried to say the markers had been there for years. The surveyor just shrugged. "Doesn't matter. The legal boundary is the legal boundary." 3 days later, I sent Tyler a letter. Certified mail. Inside was a copy of the survey and a simple request. Remove the section of driveway on my property. Within 30 days. That's when things got ugly. Tyler started shouting insults across the yard. Brooke began posting complaints in neighborhood Facebook groups. According to them, I was a grumpy old man trying to bully young homeowners. People online believed them. At first. But remember those cameras? And remember the footage of Tyler moving the property markers? Well, I sent copies to the county office. And to the police. Tampering with official survey markers? Turns out, that's illegal. Very illegal. 2 weeks later, a police cruiser parked in front of Tyler's house. I watched quietly from my porch. The officer knocked on their door. Tyler stepped outside. Confused. Then nervous. Then pale. Because the officer was holding printed photos. Still frames from my cameras. Showing Tyler digging up the markers. Moving them. Trying to alter the boundary. That was the moment Tyler realized something. The quiet old neighbor had been watching the entire time. Within a month, Tyler and Brooke put their house up for sale. Apparently, legal fees and driveway reconstruction are expensive. Very expensive. The day the moving truck arrived, Tyler avoided eye contact, but Brooke walked over. She looked embarrassed. "I guess we misjudged you." I just nodded politely, because the truth was, they hadn't misjudged me. They had simply underestimated the quiet ones. Now my house is quiet again. The oak tree still shades the porch. And every evening around sunset, I sit in the same chair Linda bought 20 years ago, watching the neighborhood, listening to the wind through the leaves. And sometimes, I think about how close Tyler came to stealing the land I built my life on. But in the end, the thing that saved my home wasn't anger. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't revenge. It was patience. And a few well-placed cameras. Because if there's one lesson life teaches you after 60, it's this: the loudest people in the room usually think they're the smartest. But the quiet ones, they're usually just waiting. Waiting for the moment when the truth finally speaks for itself. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had neighbors who tried something like this? And if you were in my place, what would you have done? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Because next time, I'll tell you about the moment my own sons tried to sell my house without telling me, and how that plan backfired in a way they never expected.